Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. This is Dr. Pamela Gay, and I am here with Dr. Ulyana. I'm just going to go with that because
That works.
you're fabulous. Your last name is terrifying. And we are coming to you live from a Planetary Science Institute hosted citizen science meeting in the, oh my God, it's hot city of Tucson, Arizona. Now, I have Ulyana here to talk to us about how she takes people into the wilds of the world and finds science in between.
Yes.
So introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do.
So my name is Ulyana, and I go by Uli typically. And a call sign that I received was Dr. Skittles. I don't eat them anymore. I'm a lot healthier now. But I lived in Nepal actually for a year abroad, and I got so sick of eating the oatmeal every morning, in the villages. So I would have like a stash of Skittles in my pocket, and I'd go in there, and somebody caught it once. They're like, ah. So that's the story there. And my PhD was doing a lot of work up in Nepal on glacial lakes. And these are lakes that form actually on the surfaces of glaciers. There's others that are just lakes kind of by themselves, where glaciers have retreated. But the bigger danger are the ones growing on the glacier, because they're starting to get wider and deeper. And they can basically pose a flooding hazard to villagers down below. And so throughout the course of working there, I had lots of interactions with the locals, the Sherpas, and the Nepali people, and then tourists, because it's a pretty popular trekking route there. We're just kind of off the grid to Mount Everest base camp. But a lot of people take this detour. They call it Everest the Hard Way, because you have to go over multiple passes, mountain passes, 16, 17,000 feet to get to Everest.
Wow.
So I recruited these people. I'm like, you want to go on a boat? We have life vests. We can go see the glacier up close. You can help us out with our science. And so out of that idea, I was born Science in the Wild, which is like, let's take more people on these kinds of trips. Let's expose them to science and adventure all in one.
And what's amazing is you're literally getting to watch the world change with the research you're doing. These glacial lakes, these are in some hydrodynamic ways related to the water flow underneath glaciers that is accelerating their advance toward wherever it is they're going to die, whether it be going into the ocean or simply melting into the land. When was the first time you saw a glacier face to face?
It's when I was actually 6 years old.
Wow.
I didn't know what it was at the time, right? So my family had taken us on kind of an edu-vacation, is for lack of a better. So my parents always wanted us, whenever we went on vacation, to learn things.
Right.
And so this was in the Swiss Alps.
Oh, wow.
And I remember it was July, there's snow everywhere. So of course I have two older brothers. We're kids, we're like, snowball fight.
Yeah.
Right? And then we turned on my mom, and I've seen the video now where I throw a snowball at my mom, and then all of a sudden in the distance you hear a rumble, and there's an ice avalanche. So not like the typical snow ones, but like the glacier collapsing. We all stop and look at it, and my mom goes, "See, that's what you get for for hitting your mom with a snowball." But I just remember, like, wow, the power of nature. So that kind of imprinted. So again, I didn't have an understanding of what any of that was.
Right.
But it imprinted on me like that I love being outdoors and doing these kinds of things. And so I vowed to return to the Alps, and that just happened last summer. And finally got to climb a peak in the Alps, and also got engaged up there. So it was pretty surreal.
And so it sounds like your life is slowly getting bookended by glaciers with all these periodic adventures. Now, your research in graduate school has taken you not just into doing research that appears on paper and being one of those stoic scientists who is out like, I shall save the Nepalese by figuring out glaciers. You're working with them directly.
Yes.
And you didn't mean to do citizen science. You simply meant there are humans here who are useful.
Yes.
So how did you like look around and do what almost no scientist does and just, hi humans, will you help me?
Yeah, I mean, it was something, I think it comes back to my education from my family, that always try to be helpful, be a servant, have whatever you end up doing in your life to be of service. So that was kind of ingrained in me from the beginning. And so in Nepal, I saw these people like in some ways frightened about what they knew things were changing and they were frightened. And I'm like, well, there's no need to be frightened. Let's try to understand it.
Yeah.
And also, I become kind of obsessed with Mount Everest. Like, I read all the books I could about it. And then I knew Sherpas in the capacity of they pour the equipment up and down the mountain.
Right.
So that's what I thought Sherpas were, not knowing they were an ethnicity, right? And so when I got there, I'm like, well, I want them to not just be carrying all my stuff, because I would have like multiple bags of equipment, scientific equipment. I want them actively involved. So I pay them, and I'm like, you guys, like when they dropped off the equipment, I'm like, would you want to help like set up this really cool camera to look, and watch the glacier? What about going in a boat? They don't know how to swim, right? Because they're in the mountains.
Oh, right.
So they had the life vests, and we put them in really shallow waters just to test it out. So it's all. We work on the premise of safety first, then science, and then summits. Because I do love the climbing aspect too, the adventure. But for me, the importance is making sure everyone comes home.
Right.
And then also like getting good science. But like you said, the intent wasn't necessarily, okay, I'm going to create a citizen science initiative.
Yeah.
It was like, well, let's get all these people involved. Like, they live here, right?
Yes.
And then they should know like all these things. And I don't want to come in, like you said, be the savior. Like, that's not the point.
Right.
It's other scientists had come in there and been like, okay, this is what it is, here's what's happening. And it got published in some, like in the BBC or whatever, and then the locals were like, we didn't know about this, and they were working right in our backyard. So that kind of prompted some ideas of like, well, how can I do things differently?
Well, and it must provide an amazing context to your research. You were saying that they saw their landscape changing.
Yes.
How many times have you just sat and been in awe of their ability to describe their changing landscape?
It's very different to science, because it's all about the storytelling, and in some cases there are also the myths, of the mountains. But to me, it kind of transports me back to a time like when exploration was just happening in the area, and what that was like when it was pretty untouched,
right,
by Western civilization. So I find it so fascinating. These people like in their 80s and 90s, that have seen this change, and just describing it in the context of crops or their children or stories. And so Science in the Wild has kind of incorporated some of that into the art of science storytelling.
Yes.
So explaining the science, but in different ways than just papers and things, but like graphics, as well as our time-lapse imagery. Because I feel people respond to things when they see videos and films about things versus graphs.
Yeah.
And papers where they're like, wait, what? I don't know. It's just a different way of communicating things. So.
And glaciers are one of those things that look much safer than they are.
Yes.
Glaciers are probably one of the most dangerous things that you can go trekking on. Do not do this without supervision, aid, safety equipment, the ability to scream for help digitally. And going out there, you've put your life in danger, and you've also saved other people in the process. And tell folks what it's been like to just see this change and see the fragility.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, because the glacier, the main one we work on, has been changing so rapidly that all the maps are out of date. And these maps are being sold in Kathmandu, in the capital.
Oh, no.
So tourists will get the maps, and we'll have the boat out on the lakes, doing the research, and then we'll hear like every now and then a shout like, hey, like we're supposed to go here, but like there's no trail. So I've picked up people actually in the boat and transported them across to the other village, because then they head over to Everest from there. And I've had a few close calls as well, because this glacier, it's not a typical glacier like you think of. I see someone's talking about here Columbia ice fields and the Swiss Alps also. These glaciers are heavily covered in debris. So they're really rocky, and they can hide sinkholes, for example. And so I remember like walking along the moraine, that's the pile of rocks along the side of the glacier. I was walking there, finding a good place for a camera to watch and take pictures, when I see a big chunk down like 100 feet lower, and you can see the trail still on it. So everything is melting, because it's not just the ice, it's the permafrost
underneath.
Yeah, so that was something new to, I'm like, wow, I didn't think I had to worry about sinkholes and things like that over here, and permafrost melting. We didn't think the moraine had that much ice. And then at the outflow, that's where a lot of the water is leaving. Like, there's a lot that's leaving underground that we just can't see.
Right.
But from the surface, I was trying to make measurements there, flip the kayak in the current, and it was like 34 Fahrenheit, and I knew it was going to be cold going in. And we had a rope, so I
So
grabbed
that's like
it.
1 degree Celsius. Yeah.
Yeah, it was chilly. So like I knew I was going in. Like there's
Yeah.
no way to fight this current. The boat is doing this. There's just nothing I can do
Yeah.
at this point. So I'm holding onto the rope and then I just let go of the kayak like with my legs.
Yeah.
Like all right, let it just kind of go into this eddy. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. And then I almost let go of the rope because it hit me so hard that cold.
Yeah.
And then I'm
Right.
like, oh gosh. And then my hand started to just do this and started to let go of the rope. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
There are 2 people on shore managing the rope, and then I was in the middle. So it's kind of like, all right, I'm looking, and I'm like, help. And they're like, go that way, go that way. All right, I just started pulling,
Yeah.
and I got myself out, and it was grappling at that point. The little hailstones started falling, and I was on the verge of hypothermia. Thankfully, we were able to get back to the village. The Sherpas were able to help, but that was like a huge wake-up call of like,
This is dangerous
Yeah.
science.
yes, adventurous, but also extreme to an extent I wasn't willing to take it. So that really changed how I approached
And
research.
a lot of people don't realize just how dangerous science can be. In astronomy, there was 1 year where we had more astronomers die than there were race car drivers that died, because we do fall off mountains, we lower floors onto ourselves, and we're in the dark. You're out all over the world in remote circumstances. And one of the things that you're doing is you're helping everyday people who have the willingness to do the science and the money to accompany you. So they're essentially providing their own grant funds
Yeah.
to do science in the field with you. What are the kinds of things that you do that maybe your grad advisor didn't to help make sure everyone is prepared and ready for what you're taking them to face?
Yeah, so that also, so Science in the Wilds are about 3 years old now, and I really learned a lot through the first couple of years about like vetting people to make sure that they're completely prepared. And so it comes through an application process, not only finding out about their science experience and field experience, but also have they ever been to altitude? What kind of outdoor experience do they have hiking?
Right.
And so the model I'm setting up now for Science in the Wild, having seen like people who really want to do the trips but they feel intimidated.
Yes.
Like, let's go to Kilimanjaro or Nepal, but I've never been out of the country. So kind of setting them up for success now is what I'm trying to do in Colorado, is building courses where people can join in and say like climbing 101, snow sampling 101, geo 101, that they can learn all the skills that then they'll apply to one of those expeditions. I think it's going to be a much better model moving forward. And also, I have offered to have them come out to Colorado, and I would take them on hikes, train them. I come up with training programs, nutritional approaches, all of it to be successful. And on the mountain, we always have local outfitters. So it's not just me or my husband, guiding also, but locals, really important to our success.
And the locals will be the ones that know what is no longer true on the map.
Exactly, because they're up and down those routes all the time.
And one of the things that we talked about earlier is we've all seen in the news that you go to the bottom of the ocean and it's filled with plastic. Well, you go to the top of the world, and what is it that you're seeing?
Yeah, so one of the projects we have is looking at black carbon. So this is soot. The soot can come from cars, motorbikes, which is very popular in Nepal, motorbikes, and industry. And so they're really tiny particulates that I kind of liken it to like if you have a lot of sun damage on your face, not freckles. Freckles are like the dirt on the glacier.
Right.
And then the damage you can't see without a special light, that's the black carbon.
Right.
So you can have a perfectly pristine looking landscape, but it's riddled with black carbon. And so why are we concerned about it? They're dark particles that absorb more of the sun's rays, and so they heat up. They themselves heat up. They heat up their surroundings, the snow, and start to melt it faster. And black carbon doesn't like water, okay? So then it starts to sit on top. So you can imagine this mat kind of black carbon accumulating and then making it worse and worse.
And that just accelerates the process of changing our landscape.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're not going to go down that depressing rabbit hole.
Yeah, I've been there many times.
And it's amazing to me that you have found a path forward in a nation that doesn't support climate change research, where you're training people to do science, building on their enthusiasm, and funding your science through the education you do. Can you tell people, like, what are the opportunities that they could have to do citizen science with you?
Yeah, so at the moment, we're really keen on the expeditions, because that's kind of how Science in the Wild started. But now the webpage is currently being revamped, and so there's going to be like 6 different categories you can join in at. So if you want education but not necessarily research, or if you want pure adventure with a little bit of science sprinkled in, there's for everyone an opportunity to come on the trips. Now, for those who may not be able to, that's where what we're collaborating on here, creating these virtual platforms for people to interact with the data and the images. I think that's crucial, because you can still be a scientist from your couch and interacting, with the data that way. And a new thing we're also doing is filming in 360 degrees. So I have a few friends who are not able to walk; they're in wheelchairs, and in some ways this idea was born out of that. Like we took him to the high point of Wisconsin. So my husband and I have this project where we're climbing peaks, creating music videos and science educational videos.
Right.
And so he was from Wisconsin, and he joined on the high point, and we pushed him up the trail and carried him a bit, and got him there. And he was it was the coolest experience for him. But obviously he can't come on the expeditions we have. So by filming in 360 and having those Oculus Go goggles, he can experience what we're seeing and be there too. So I also have a friend who's deaf that we're trying to get up to Kilimanjaro in the next year. So providing opportunities for people from all over is kind of the goal for Science in the Wild. So either it's on expedition or it's in that virtual platform.
And all of you out there probably know that CosmoQuest, our development schedule is, we have fewer programmers, so things are going slower. But we are working to continue bringing you new science opportunities. And beyond what we're doing with Bennu right now, one of the next big projects that we're looking at doing is launching an opportunity for you to help Uly map out these glaciers. And we have a variety of different ways that we can do this. Now, I see that someone is asking, what is your website? So what's your website?
Yes, the website is www.scienceinthewild.com. And
her Instagram is fabulous.
Thank you. You made a comment about one of the videos. So this was up in the Arctic. So we're there.
Oh, yeah. It looked like you were going to die.
Okay, can I tell a story really quick? All right. Yes. So this was with we were filming a climate change documentary up in the Arctic. So this is really close to the North Pole, an archipelago called Svalbard. It's owned by Norway. And it was kind of the shoulder season in October. And the filmmaker and I, we were there. We're like, all right, we're going to charter a boat. Now, obviously, we're not driving the boat.
Yeah,
we have a captain and a guide and all that. To go get some really cool images at the calving front of a glacier. Now, what I mean by calving front is this is where the glacier breaks off. And it's phenomenal to see, but also sad, obviously, because it's breaking apart. So we were going there, and we had to go across this bay, which, it wasn't supposed to be too bad, but then the waves started picking up. And the pictures have a really hard time conveying, like, these are 2 to 3 meter waves. It looks flat on the picture.
And you're in a small boat.
We were in a speedboat. We were in a speedboat with 4 of us. 4 of us.
So the waves were taller than your boat was long.
So I just remember being tossed up and down, and then I'm like, okay, I'm getting seasick. Oh God. So like, you can't throw up in the cabin. You have to go outside. I'm like, are you kidding me? I have to go outside. So I go run out onto the deck, right? And then there are these little chains that I'm holding onto and puking. That's the video you saw. Of the boat going up and down.
The puke isn't in the video, to be clear.
No, it's not. But it's so funny because the last part of that video is like, need another bag? And then you see her hand me a bag. Yeah, I didn't actually eat anything before that ride because I knew it was going to be pretty rough waters. But it didn't matter. Whatever was in there.
Yeah. Bodies sometimes find a way to offload extra weight so you can run faster, even if that won't help because you're on a boat.
Yes. So that was, even the captain afterwards told us, that was getting really dangerous because if you thought the speedboat was small enough, then we had to take a Zodiac to actually land, and we would have been flipped. So no, I was already having misgivings about the whole thing. I'm like, no, it's not worth it, obviously.
Yeah.
We can document all this from the boat just fine because look at it.
Yeah. And with the Glacial Lakes project that we're going to be looking at, this is using a lot of the tools that you're familiar with, where we're going to actually be looking at images that your volunteers have set up the cameras to get. Can you
Yes.
tell about some of the adventures the cameras have been on?
Yeah, the cameras have been on many adventures, and so they're strung along the length of the glacier. That's around. Let me do the conversions.
Okay. Oh, you can use whatever units.
I'm trying to remember.
Global...
I mixed
okay.
it all up. It was a pretty long glacier. It was like 18 kilometers.
Okay.
So like 10 miles or so. And then it kind of turns a corner, and there's another like unclimbed, to our knowledge, unclimbed glacier that we went on and got kind of the first descent. If that's, I don't know if it's true, but as far as we could tell. So we set up cameras all along there, and so you can watch the glacial lakes filling and draining and refilling. You can see things collapsing, like big ice chunks falling in. You can watch one of them. It's pretty good footage of one of the tallest mountains called Cho'oyu, the sixth tallest. And you can watch how it's changing. You can actually see the glacier moving because it's over months.
Wow.
Time. But where we set up that camera, because we had a rodent of all things get it into the stationing camera on another site, that ruined all our images.
Oh, geez.
We had to place this one on the glacier, but that glacier was also moving. And so the imagery is pretty cool. You can actually watch our camera moving. And then it starts to tilt because I think one of the legs went into a crevasse.
Yeah.
Even though it was secured with ice screws. I mean,
Yeah.
everything's moving.
And everything's melting.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden we're like, okay, now we got a view of this mountain. All right, what can we do with this footage?
Wow.
So as a scientist, you have to learn to adapt to these kinds of things. Like we did the best we could, up there.
Yeah.
And when Sherpas went to retrieve it, I think it was 2 years later, they were able to go finally and get it. They said that, so imagine this is the surface of the glacier, and the camera used to be this high, and it was like that. That's how much had melted into the glacier, too.
Dang.
Yeah.
And so you're like hacking your cameras out of the ice.
So they got the camera, but they couldn't get the rest of the tripod. So eventually, when I go back, I hope this year or the next year, I want to actually see, because I took a GPS point where it ended up.
Yes.
So it could also offer some interesting data. So I think it's important to use whatever means necessary to get the science out. You think, oh man, like this weather station cracked, water got in, all my data is ruined, but there's other valuable data.
It's still a marker.
Exactly. If nothing, it's just a very expensive marker now. But I think I've learned throughout the years of spending time up there just how to MacGyver solutions and how to just deal with those failures, because it's not if, it's rather when up there.
Right.
When it's gonna something's gonna collapse or break or
and this is one of the important lessons that doesn't get talked about enough. We have to be creative hackers.
Yes.
And shows like MacGyver taught us how to chewing gum and shoelace our instrumentation together.
Yep.
And so you have this crazy combination of best satellite imagery that you can purchase or get from the databases, top-notch cameras and GPS units, and sometimes just measuring the position of a tripod.
Yeah. And I had an undergraduate assistant with me one time, and we had a dredge. So the dredge kind of opens up. It's kind of like those if you've ever seen them at restaurants or stores, the little
yeah,
you know what I'm talking about, that thing?
Yeah, it grabs stuffed animals if you're lucky.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the same with the dredge. If you're lucky, you get sample of the bottom of the lake.
Right.
Because it's not just ice, it's mud down there, and the mud covering the ice blocks the heat from the water going through the mud to the ice, melting it. So we really wanted to understand the properties of that mud to calculate the heat. So we needed to grab samples, and diving down there at those altitudes first off, and the turbidity, how the visibility is really poor, it's just not safe. So we have a dredge, and I have the little piece that's meant to close the dredge. It falls and closes it inside the dredge. So my undergrad assistant grabs it, gets it all set up, and I hear a bloop. I'm like, oh no, the piece that's meant to close the dredge fell in the lake. So I'm like, oh my gosh. Now I have this I think it was like $700 dredge thing I can't use. What the heck? So you know what our solution was?
What?
We grabbed a bunch of rocks and duct tape. And then it actually worked.
That's wild.
It taught us ways to be creative out there, and he learned. He felt so bad. I'm like, no, don't. I'll tell you the things I've done, like losing stuff, and it's part of it. You learn. And so instead of getting angry, let's be creative.
Just solve it.
Exactly, and that's what scientists do. And so I showed in that moment, even though at first I'm like, oh no, and a little upset, which is human, So,
right.
But let's turn this into a positive. And we got it. Yeah,
and
the claw. There we go.
Yes, yes. And the Citizen Science Project we'll be putting together will be for all of you and all of us. It's everything we do. We try to open it up for as many people as possible. And the only problem we have is, unfortunately, because it is visual data, we're only open to visually capable people, but we're always going to explain everything we do using all means possible. And you, as we look out at this world, if you could capture any data set and make every single person in the world see that data set, what would you want them to know?
Well, it's kind of a vision I have. All the high peaks around the world
Yeah.
are changing rapidly. So getting imagery that just speaks to that change more powerfully than any graph can show. That's kind of the big picture there, because when you see something changing literally before your eyes like that,
Right.
and you see the loss, like, it's sometimes hard to connect with it. Like living here in the US, it's like, well, what do I care about what's happening on Everest or in the Andes?
Right.
But also adding the human story to it. So not just like the imagery of these things changing, but then the added component of the human stories. How are
Yes.
they going to be impacted? What have they done to deserve this? They haven't. But like actually hearing those heartfelt stories, I think that's going to enact change that we want.
You had a huge impact on me when you told me the story when we met at a conference of a glacier above a Sherpa village, that if its lake went, the village would be destroyed.
Yep. That's the one we've been watching closely, because it actually, a little chunk of ice broke off and landed in the lake, and they saw a wave coming, but it dissipated pretty quickly, minimal
good.
damage. But yeah, that was a big wake-up call, because we hadn't ventured up there. We didn't think there was anything up there, because all our work was kind of, in this one area. And so that forced me also as a scientist to be like, well, I'm going to listen to the people always in the
Right.
village, but like to expand my horizons to like, all right, let's go up there. It's really challenging, like trying to find a way up, because there have cliffs and things, but we have to find a way to get up there and document this. And so yeah, sometimes you never know where there might be these hazards, and so you do rely on the people to tell us.
And so some of the science we do, we're keeping a spacecraft happy and healthy with the OSIRIS-REx Bennu mappers. Go mark rocks, people. But this project that we have coming up, this is going to be your chance to not just protect a spacecraft, but to help protect humans. And science impacts all of us in ways we don't always understand. And I really look forward to working with you and everything that you have coming. But for now, if people wanted to get involved with the stuff you have coming up shortly, where all should they go, and what all do you have as a possibility?
Yeah, so I would say go on to scienceinthewild.com by the end of, I'm hoping this weekend, because I'm in the middle of a revamp of look at all the different experiences we offer. And we're going to actually be going to Kilimanjaro at the end of August. So if anyone's interested in joining, we still have 2 spots left for that one.
Now, for people who don't know, where is Kilimanjaro?
Yes. Kilimanjaro is in Tanzania, so it's Africa's highest point. We have an amazing ground team there that we're working with. And some of the goals we have after that trip are to be collecting rocks in this, what's called the Alpine Desert area. Oh, we'll definitely be playing that. Total.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at some of these rocks as analogs to Mars, because they
Yes.
have these interesting coatings that they found also on Mars. So we have an Earth-Mars analog potential there. We're going to be looking at the glaciers and taking samples and setting up also hopefully a camera to be watching those glaciers.
Excellent.
So there's a whole variety of science going to be happening. We also have a couple people really into astronomy, so they're bringing their telescope up. So we'll be doing some astronomy up there. I'm not sure about like streaming any of it, because the signal, will...
Yeah, internet varies.
Yeah, but meanwhile, like what we're trying to do also by the end of the summer is get a lot of this stuff up on the webpage of where did we go, what did we collect, and have field reports you guys can read through. And then by the fall and into the winter, hopefully more of an online platform for people to interact with. That is kind of our looking out at the 6 months.
This is awesome. So everyone, go check out Science in the Wild, the website, the Instagram. You're on Facebook as well.
Yes.
And this is, if you like to leave your house and be in the world instead of on the internet, I know many of you would rather die than go outside. I love you. This is your chance to go do science that you're seeing our world change. So go get involved. I know, Paranor, I know.
And yeah, the point of like all the melting revealing the human waste that they thought it could just bury in crevasses. Yeah, that's a huge problem. That's a huge problem.
So, this has been a ninja show here on CosmoQuest. We are a production of the Planetary Science Institute, and we are coming to you from Tucson, Arizona, where we are at a Planetary Science Institute-hosted conference on citizen science. I don't know what all is going to be coming. Our schedule has been very much in flux, as sometimes happens at conferences. So stay tuned, and I'm working to arrange lots of interviews after this conference with all the amazing people that I'm meeting. So stay tuned. Go mark yourself some rocks and measure some boulders. Let's keep our little spacecraft happy, healthy, and finding soil. And in the future, well, things are going to get a little watery around here when we start looking at glacial lakes. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will see you guys on the other side. Tomorrow, Annie Wilson is going to be here at 1 p.m. Eastern. That is 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. London time, bringing you the Sunday Science Hour. I believe she's working on doing data reduction on Spitzer images. So come back tomorrow, and I will be back on Monday with the Daily Space. Same time, same place, and wherever you are in the world. Remember, go outside, look up. I'll see y'all later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.